In Dallas, Texas, a father accused of the brutal murder of his own daughters, a so-called alleged honor killing. Yaser Said has been called the devil in court, and today he took the stand to tell his story. Tonight, we have the latest.
So Yaser, you did not kill your daughter, did you?
For sure did not.
In Monterey County, California, the 1996 murder of college student Kristen Smart. Her classmate, Paul Flores, is on trial, and we have a live report with all the details from court.
He was just kind of out of nowhere, came out of the darkness. Paul came from the left and kind of said, hey, I'm going back too, meaning the dorms, and came with us.
On the docket tonight in Glynn County, Georgia, the man who murdered Ahmaud Arbery back in federal court being sentenced for his hate crime conviction.
I was more anxious to see was he going to address the parents of Ahmaud and also to the family of Ahmaud. And Travis chose not to even say that he was sorry.
That's who he is.
Plus, a pregnant woman in Dallas, Texas gets a ticket for driving in the HOV lane. Tonight's 13-juror question: should the pregnant woman's ticket for driving in the HOV lane be thrown out? Get ready. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. And we'll have more on those stories in just a moment. But first, we have this breaking news tonight. Former President Donald Trump says that the FBI has raided his Florida home today. The circumstances of the search of Mar-a-Lago not immediately clear. The Associated Press is reporting that neither the Justice Department nor the FBI is commenting on the search. The former president did release a statement about all of it today. President Trump says in a statement released by his Political Action Committee, quote, after working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate. He added, these are dark times for our nation as my beautiful home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, is currently under siege, raided and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. Nothing like this has ever happened to a president of the United States before. The Justice Department has been investigating the discovery of boxes of records containing classified information that were taken to Mar-a-Lago after Donald Trump's presidency ended. It's not clear whether the FBI search was connected to that. Court TV, of course, will continue to bring you coverage of this breaking legal news as it develops. Meanwhile, in Texas today, the case of a man accused of an honor killing. It's a trial you're watching on Court TV. You know, where do you start? Where do you start? You call it an honor killing. That's like an oxymoron. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. If it's true, it's outrageous, beyond outrageous. As a father, you have children. Your job is to take care of them, do whatever you can to protect them. But Yaser Said is accused of murdering his two daughters because apparently they were becoming too American, living in America. Anyhow, those are the allegations. Yaser Said, though, a man who was on the run for quite some time, not on the run, but got up and walked up to the witness stand to testify and deny the double murder. Take a listen.
Can you explain to the jury, let's start with that afternoon when Amina comes home.
I met them normally, like always, and I wanted to solve the problem.
And by the problem, you mean you were upset that they had run away with these boys, and who specifically they were dating at that time?
Yes, I was normally, I was upset because in my culture, it's something to get upset about.
Okay. But you also, you did not kill your daughters, did you?
For sure did not.
Okay. And I want to be perfectly clear on this. When you left the girls in the cab, they were alive and well, correct?
Certainly.
Now, what was the plan? Were you going to meet them somewhere else, meet them at home? When you decided to leave on foot to potentially draw this thread away and leaving them with the car, when were you going to reconnect with your daughters?
I went on foot, hoping that I will see one of my friends and maybe he will give me a ride, but I did not have a specific plan of what to do at that point for them also.
Couldn't call an Uber. It was 2008. There were no Ubers. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter is in Texas covering this. She is on location tonight. Chanley, great to see you. First of all, explain to us where you are tonight.
Hey, great to be with you tonight, Vinny. I'm actually at the North Transit Station in Irving, Texas. This is the location where the defendant said he left his two daughters in his taxi cab as he abandoned them because he felt in fear of his life, that someone was following their vehicle. So he decided that he first stopped at the Lodge Gentleman Club, which is about 4 minutes this way, directly in front of me. And then he drove here after he decided there wasn't enough security or people that he knew there. So he drove here, decided a new plan to leave his daughters here. He left his cell phone in the car. He left the gun that he had kept in his cab for protection. And then he ran on foot this direction to my right, which is now developed into an apartment complex. But like you said, in 2008, this was a very desolate area where I am right now. As you can see on the map, kind of the location of the Omni Hotel where the girls' bodies were found. That's about 5 minutes from where I'm standing here at the transit station in Irving, Texas. That gives you a visual effect. But if you look at the parking lot behind me, Vinny, it is well lit. His testimony was that he wanted to leave his daughters in a place that was well lit. There's lots of lights in this bus transit station behind me, but he also thought there would be security cameras. And I've been here kind of scouting the property. I don't see any cameras. There could be some closer to where the buses actually load. But this is a scene of what it looks like that he testified to today on the stand.
Father's job is to protect his children, right?
Certainly, for sure, but at that night, I did not think they will be harmed by their own friends.
You don't even know who was in this car behind you, do you?
Yes, but I had expectation.
Expectations of what?
That somebody sent them after me personally to hurt me.
Where did you go? You didn't go to your house.
I'm familiar with that area. I was hanging around in that area.
Until when?
A while. I don't remember how long.
So you just stayed at the Waffle House until 2020? You just hung out at the Waffle House?
Waffle House was just a stop. Then I left because I was avoiding public areas.
It's important that you remained hidden, right?
I never said I wasn't hiding in the house. I used the house.
So his testimony was that he went on foot. He went to this Waffle House. Again, that's probably about 8 minutes from where I'm standing right now. That's a long walk on foot, Vinny. And that's what he said. He said he went on the run because he told this jury he felt that immediately the media was after him, that what he saw was very prejudicial against him, and that he feared he would not receive a fair trial. So he was on the run for 12 years.
12 years. So he did finally leave the Waffle House. That's good to know. Really, the flight to me is such an important part of this case. But anyway, tell us about cross-examination today. How did that go? Because for prosecutors, we don't get to do it often. We see it a little more often here on Court TV. For some reason, the cases that we're covering, defendants are taking the stand. What happened during cross?
Prosecutor Lauren Black, Vinny, came prepared, and she was sharp with her questioning of the defendant about his potential holes in the story that he gave on direct examination. She questioned, of course, when he stopped at the Lodge Gentleman Club, why didn't he go in? They have security there. If he felt in fear of his life, he could have asked for help there. He had his cell phone with him. Why didn't he call 911? He also, remember, I told you, he had his gun in the car for protection. Let's listen to that part of cross-examination.
and you decided to leave the car and leave your two daughters in the car by themselves.
I did not expect anyone would harm them.
Right, because you were scared they were going to harm you, right?
I was thinking someone sent them after me to harm me and not my girls.
So, what did you do with your gun?
Because it's a dangerous area where I'm going to work at night, I would take my gun with me and place it between the seat and the cubby, but not every day.
You left the gun in the car, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But you were so scared you didn't take the gun with you.
How would I carry gun and go in the street with it?
You were scared, right?
I hid by myself. I didn't think I would need the gun.
While the defendant didn't have any overt emotional reaction at all on direct or cross, the emotion came from those attorneys back and forth with objections, Vinnie, and also the jury. I had my eyes on them. Stoic, serious, not taking a lot of notes throughout the defendant's testimony. There was one man on the front row, had his arms crossed like this. He looked very skeptical.
I could imagine. I think most people watching are very skeptical. And again, it comes back to the flight, and then you get into the details of this story. Chanley Painter on location tonight in Irving, Texas. Thank you so much, Chanley. Great to see you.
Thanks, Vinnie.
All right, let's bring in our think tank, see what they have to say about all this. Joining us tonight in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, there he is, Albert H. Wunsch III, also a former prosecutor. Also with us below me, you see him, Darnell, Crosland, criminal defense attorney. He's in Stamford, Connecticut tonight, not traveling the world. And in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Welcome, great to see everyone. All right, where do I start? Al, are you more safe or less safe when you are carrying your gun, when someone is chasing you and trying to kill you?
Well, Ben, if I was going to be asked this question, I think I would have to say probably more safe with the gun. I think I'd probably have a better shot, excuse the pun, of getting out of trouble if I have a weapon and I think someone is coming after me. I think I'm in worse shape if I'm leaving my two daughters in a place, in a car, with a gun, and then I disappear. But I think that this story teaches us one valuable lesson. We need to bring back America's Most Wanted, okay? Because how did it take 12 years to find this idiot? I said, absolutely 30 miles away from where this thing was, they found this guy. How did they how could we not find him? We've killed members of Al-Qaeda in less time than we've took to find this guy. It's sick,
Yeah.
Absolutely sick.
Well, he was on the FBI Most Wanted list. Let me ask you, Darnell, he's got a cell phone, and I have a cell phone here, right? So if at this moment someone broke into the studio or I heard something rumbling outside, someone say, where is Politan? Get me Politan. I want to. First thing I do is hide in the corner, put stuff up against there. Then I would call 911. Somebody's following you, trying to kill you. Why don't you just call 911?
That's a good question. But that's a good question. But to answer Al's question, why it took 12 years.
Wait. You're answering Al's question before my question? Al, you want to switch boxes here tonight? Al, why don't you sit in this box tonight, and I'll sit in Al's box, and he'll ask the questions. Go ahead, Darnell, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Look, you did say
Al trying to take over the show. What's happening right now is Al Wunsch is trying to take over the show.
You did say in one of the shows Al is senior to you, right? So I have to respect your elders. So the police hang out in donut shops, not Waffle House. I think that's what this gentleman was. So that's probably why, Al. But
Stop
in terms
attacking
of
police, Darnell. Stop attacking police. He's attacking police. He's going to attack police.
So in terms of this cell phone issue, yes, he could have called 911. So I think that doesn't look good on him. In terms of leaving his gun in the car, I think I'm a gun carrying person. I could understand his position why he wouldn't take the gun out and walk around with the gun. Not sure if he had a concealed carry permit or not. But also, if you're just nervous and you're you know,
is whether or not I am violating the concealed carry permit law on top of mind when someone is trying to kill you and they're chasing you? Really? Come on, Darnell. You're giving them a little. No, nothing is. Now, Jennifer Brandt, one of the reasons I'm chuckling tonight because I find his story ridiculous. I really do.
Totally ridiculous.
I think it's laughable what he's saying, but it's being delivered in a different way, right? It's through a translator. So, what are your thoughts about that, Jennifer Brandt? The fact that the story is being told through the translator, you know, because I'm listening to her voice, and that's not his voice, and I got to kind of look at his body, but I'm hearing her really tell the story. Does that change anything? Do you think the dynamics of all this in the courtroom?
I mean, other than it's a feminine voice and you're looking at this man, I mean, that's the only thing that's a little bit distracting. But I think she's doing a pretty good job of probably answering the way he would. I think she's using his words. I don't feel like she's making up anything. I think she's accurately translating. I wouldn't know for sure, but it seems that way. And you could see, I think the great thing is to have those clear masks because you really can see his facial expressions, which sometimes we lose when people are masked in the courtroom. So you can kind of see how he's reacting, and he's showing really no emotion. And he doesn't look like he's too upset about anything. So I think it's pretty, given the circumstances, I think it's about the best that you're going to be able to do. But the interesting thing is I believe he speaks English. So I'm not really sure why he's using a translator. And I think that's something that we should question, and maybe the jury will question. You know, maybe he's just sort of using this to maybe get some sympathy or to, you know, show a cultural difference. I'm not really sure. But if he understands English, you know, I'm not so sure how much the translator is really needed. And I think it's buying him some time in answering those questions.
Then the interpreter is not allowed to show emotion. The interpreter has to only interpret.
No, she's not showing emotion. He's
no, but she's not allowed. She's not allowed. But she's not allowed. She's got to do monotone.
As he's testifying. But as you see him testifying, you can see his face. You can see what he's telling her.
You can see his face, which is good.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's pretty good.
We're going to leave this where it is. We'll see what happens tomorrow. In the meantime, when we come back, we're going to take you to California. Kristen Smart disappeared back in 1996. She was a student in college. Now one of her classmates charged with a murder. We are live from California when we return.
It's crazy that we're finally here. I'm glad that we're finally here. I feel like, you know, the Smart family is going to have closure soon, and hopefully justice is brought to, you know, who the guilty party is.
I remember the thing that was the most frustrating was it felt like there was a good amount of evidence, but it was just handled poorly with the local police.
All my family knows about the case. It's kind of hard not to.
It took a long time to get to where we are, and where we are is a murder trial. Kristen Smart disappeared in 1996. She was a student, first in her family to go away to college. It was supposed to be the start of something amazing, something special, and it turned incredibly tragic. And now, one of her former classmates, Paul Flores, is being tried for her murder out in California. His co-defendant kind of looks like him a little bit, right? Only a little bit older. That's his father. That's Rubin Flores, who's accused of helping his son after the fact in all this. So the trial's continuing. Unfortunately, they have barred cameras from being inside the courtroom. Otherwise, we would be showing you what happened. But good news. We have with us Court TV crime and justice reporter Matt Johnson joining us from Monterey County, California, who has the big details tonight. So tell us about today's big witnesses, Matt, and great to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Vinny. Nice to see you at home. Big day, week 4 of this trial. Again, as you mentioned, no court cameras allowed, but I can tell you, father and son, they're sitting at that defense table together. They're looking over at each other. When this testimony hit the stand today, it was a big one because this particular witness, Tim Davis, he was at the party where she was last seen alive. We're talking Kristen Smart back in 1996, that Memorial Day weekend. He said that the two interacted quite a bit when we're talking about Paul Flores, the defendant in all of this. This is what Timothy Davis said on the stand. He said that he was walking with one of his very good friends after leaving that Memorial Day party, and then the two had run into Kristen Smart on a nearby lawn. They asked how she was doing. They were going to help her up. This is the four people right here. This is the key four people as we're talking about this testimony of the day. And then they say out of nowhere, Paul Flores walks out from the darkness, from the bushes, and says, "I'll help Kristen Smart." He went on to testify with this, quote, "I have had to relive the night for 26 years because of this case. I have had much time to think about it. At one point, I remember looking down, looking back at Kristen Smart. She was on the ground with Paul Flores. He was next to her. It appeared to me that they had fallen on the ground. She looked like she was trying to get some sleep. She didn't want to be there." That's the observations of them together at that Crandall Way house. This is off-campus party, Vinnie, as we've been talking about this, that weekend in 1996.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's taken this long, and really he was the first person investigators were looking at, and it took this many years. One of the reasons that we are where we are is because of a podcast that came out, and we're saying that a lot in cases that we're covering these days, by the way, Matt. And I understand you spoke to the podcast who seemingly broke this case back open.
Right, we've had him on before, Chris Lambert, In Your Own Backyard podcast. He had a lot of interaction with the family leading up to this. He's done documentaries like we all have on these particular cases. With this trial before it, he said that he interviewed the family quite a bit, so it's hard for him to sit behind them. They're under a gag order, and they can't speak to the media and talk about Kristen Smart and how amazing of a person she was, and all of those things that we would normally be doing. So I asked him, "You've spoken to the family quite a bit. Please tell me more about Kristen Smart for our viewers."
Kristen was this bright, joyous person with a lot of zest for life. She loved to travel. She was close with her siblings. She was very encouraging. She stayed in touch with them. They had their troubles. You know, when she was at Cal Poly, she really didn't feel like she fit in there, and she told her parents that, and they communicated back and forth a lot about her struggling through her freshman year, but it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary for a typical freshman moving away to go to college and then being like, "I don't really like this experience."
He's been here each and every day with the rest of us. He's covered this case from start to end to the point that we are now 2 decades later, Vinnie. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what do you think so far? You know, we have all of our own opinions as the case moves on." And he said, "Well, there's no smoking gun just yet. I'm waiting for that to be presented in court."
Matt Johnson reporting in Monterey County, California tonight. Thanks so much, Matt. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring back in our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell, Crosland, Jennifer Brandt with us. Here's where I want to go with this tonight. And I want to talk about the role of podcasts. And why is it, Darnell, and are you troubled by this as a criminal defense attorney, that there are many cold cases that seem to be getting new life because of podcasts, and sometimes they are leading to charges against defendants? All of a sudden, we've got a case that was cold, but now everyone is talking about it. Your thoughts about the podcast, not to get people who've been convicted out of prison, but people who've been walking around free put in prison?
Well, for one, I'm a big supporter of podcasts, and I have my own CROSLANDLAWTV podcast, and I've been inviting judges, police officers, probation officers, people who I interact with every day. These are great platforms where you get to talk to people and really understand things that you otherwise wouldn't have understood. So as it relates to these cold cases, I think that when you look at the big media giants, they don't have time for that. So I think the podcasts are very important because it allows us to see, as the podcast says, in my own backyard or in your own backyard, It allows you to hear local stories, local pain, local suffering. And if it sparks an investigation, that's exactly where we should be at. Not to jump to conclusions that anybody's guilty, but at least get the police to start working, allow new life to be put into these cases that otherwise would have been overlooked.
Jennifer Brandt, I think something that does happen is it puts a little pressure out there on investigators, number one. And number two, people start talking about it again. Your thoughts, Jennifer Brandt, about the impact that podcasts are having right now on cold cases?
Well, even though Darnell has not asked me to be on his podcast, I do believe that they have a lot of value, and for the reason that Darnell said as well. I mean, they are allowing investigators who may not have the resources to cover these cold cases, and allow them to start looking at them again, and allowing people with boots on the ground to actually bring up stories that had happened and reinvigorate maybe cases that are a bit stale. So I think they're a great thing.
Al, sometimes when we cover a story when it's first happening, investigators want us to just be quiet, don't talk about it, don't talk to anyone, just kind of go away, wait for our press conference, etc. But here you're talking about podcasters, and some people, they all have different backgrounds. Some are journalists, some are just very curious people, some are just starting out, others may be retired law enforcement. But does it trouble you at all that the cold case units and the investigators aren't solving the cases, that it has to come from pressure from podcasters to uncover new things and new leads?
Well, first of all, I'm troubled because Darnell has done 3 podcasts about me, and they've all been complete lies. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that a lot of these podcasts have agendas, and they can be very dangerous. If they come up with a conclusion as to who they think did it or who it gets pointed to, that person is almost convicted in the media. And then that person almost needs a trial in order to be able to prove his innocence, which is contrary to what our government has and our laws state. So it gets to be a little scary. I've seen too many of these podcasts that have, as I said, a set path, an agenda that they follow with the belief that this is the person that did it. And then when it turns out that's not the person that did it, and there was a story about a murder in California, it turned out that they had picked on this one musician who it turned out was actually in Mexico at the time of the murder, but everything pointed towards him, and he was getting death threats. And he has no recourse because most of these podcasts are not, sufficiently funded that they're going to be able to sue or get anything damages from them. So we have to be very careful with these podcasts because everybody has, as I said, an agenda. And it's not the best thing in the world. The cold cases need to be solved by the police department. And the police department has cold case squads. We're seeing more and more cold cases being solved because of DNA improvement and things along those lines. So,
but now they're not necessarily paying attention to these cold cases, and the podcast sort of make them pay attention. So I think you're wrong there. I don't think that the police there's enough police and enough resources to really pay attention to these cases. I mean, look how long it took for the police to get back on this case, and this poor woman has been dead for how many years? And now we're talking about it. Look at the father. I mean, he's an old man. I mean, really, I think the podcasts are a great service because they bring attention to cases that may not otherwise get it.
There's a black male running down the street. We're at Satilla Shores. Stop! What's that? Stop! Sir. I roll with Ahmaud. I roll with Ahmaud. My son had dreams. That's why he worked out. He ran. He had dreams. Justice got to be served.
This is a life or death situation, and I'm going to have to stop him from doing this, so I shot.
There's only so many pastors they can have, and if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here.
Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty.
This is the first time
in the state of Georgia's history where there has been a conviction for a federal hate crime. And you all did that.
Still hard to believe that this actually happened, right? You think back, you see that video, and you're like, they literally jumped on the back of a pickup truck with guns and are chasing Ahmaud Arbery through the neighborhood. And you don't take time to think, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Well, the reason they didn't stop was the reason they were convicted of a federal hate crime on top of everything else. Take a look at the federal sentencing, which did happen today. Travis McMichael, life in prison. Gregory McMichael, life in prison. William Roddy Bryant, 35 years in prison. He's the one who didn't have a gun. He had a cell phone. He recorded the whole thing. He was in the second truck. I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, who covered this story and this trial from start to finish. Did this federal sentence today for the hate crime change anything? Because the state court already imposed a life sentence.
Well, Vinnie, it could have impacted their future as inmates in two ways: location and future appeal. As far as location and where they will serve, these defendants, they were almost desperate to get this judge to agree to allow them to serve out their sentence in federal prison. They don't want to go to state prison. They are currently in the custody of the U.S. Marshals because of this federal trial and sentencing that was pending. The judge there, Judge Lisa Wood, she said that she didn't have the authority to order the state to relinquish the custody of Travis McMichael and Gregory McMichael and William Roddy Bryant to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And she also said she wasn't inclined to do so. So they are going to go to state prison because this federal judge isn't going to intervene in any way. This is something that came as a pleasant relief to the family of Ahmaud Arbery. Listen to his mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, reacting to that decision.
I'm very proud to say that we finally got justice for Ahmaud on the federal level. I am pleased that they will do their time in the state penitentiary, and that's what I had been screaming the whole time.
Them seem that two life sentences don't mean much on top of each other, but let's take a look at how this looks for these three defendants now sentenced in two different courts. You have Gregory McMichael in that state court. He received life without parole. At federal court, he got a life sentence. Travis McMichael, also life without parole and a life sentence in federal court. And William Roddy Bryant, he got life, so he was a little bit different in terms of his sentencing than the other two co-defendants, and 35 years is what the judge handed down for him. His first option for parole in that life sentence in the state of Georgia is going to be at 30 years, so much more of an option for him to potentially be released at some point in his life. But if there's ever an appeal that's successful for these men, they would also have the other sentence that would still be in place that they would have to contend with legally, Vinnie.
How does this compare with the federal case for Derek Chauvin, the man who murdered George Floyd?
This is something that the defense attorneys for these men actually raised inside of the courtroom. The attorney for Gregory McMichael and Travis McMichael, they cited it in their argument, saying that the sentence should be lighter, that it should be more comparable to what Derek Chauvin received in the federal civil rights case involving the death of George Floyd. He received 21 years, if you recall, and he also got it concurrent with his state case, and he was able to get a plea deal where he will serve out his sentence in federal court. So there was that argument. It was made to the judge. She did not agree, but it was raised, which was rather surprising, Vinnie, because for horrible things that happened in 2020, murders that happened in 2020, I can tell you during the state case, they stayed very far away from mentioning the name Derek Chauvin inside of the courtroom, but now trying to use it unsuccessfully today to get a lighter sentence for these men in Georgia.
And finally, how about the family? What was their reaction today?
You know, Vinnie, this has been such a legal journey for this family. We've watched them go into court for pretrial, for jury trial, then sentencing. And images like this may be one of the last times this family has to go into a courtroom to face the murderers of Ahmaud Arbery. Today, they were looking for something from these defendants, this end-of-the-road type sentencing that was happening. Listen to Marcus Arbery, Ahmaud's father, talk about remorse.
All I seen was racial hate.
That's it.
That's all I seen. Racial hate. And I'm just so thanking God that God opened up the can of worms and let the world see how what we live around. What we live around. People better get it together and see what you live around. Know your neighbors. Know who you living next to. I'm telling you, don't be blind to the fact that you don't know who you living next to. You can be living to a racial hateful monster that will kill you.
Amen.
Know the facts.
That's right.
Know what's going on around you. All glory to God.
And Marcus also said he was looking for remorse in the eyes of those men, didn't see it today, hasn't seen it at any point. Travis McMichael declined to speak today. Wanda Cooper-Jones said she was looking for potentially an apology from these defendants. Gregory McMichael did speak, the father. He said that he did not want what happened that day to happen, that he didn't have any malice in his heart. But as far as an apology, his apology went to his son, the shooter, saying that he would have never wanted, or he was sorry that he put him in that position that day. So that was the extent of where his apology lie in the statements in court today, Vinnie.
Julie Janae, Court TV legal correspondent, thank you so much. When we come back, we'll bring back in our think tank and talk about our 13th juror question. Involves a woman from Texas driving in the HOV lane, the high occupancy lane, where you have to have more than one person in the car. She gets pulled over. It's just her in the driver's seat. But she has a defense. Do you buy it? She was pregnant. That story next. All right, time to go to traffic court tonight. This is a fascinating case out of Texas. A woman is pulled over in the HOV lane, high occupancy vehicle lane. That's where you're not supposed to drive there, right? If you've got more than one person in the car. Well, officer pulls her over and says, you know, where's your other, passenger in the car? She points to her stomach because she's pregnant. She's now bringing that defense in Texas. So, posted this on social media asking you, should the ticket get tossed? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day, coming to us from John, who says, depends on which state. If the state where she was driving recognizes an unborn fetus as a person with separate rights from the mother, then the ticket should be thrown out. Let's bring back in our think tank. Jennifer Brandt, your thoughts tonight. Jennifer Brandt can't hear me. I'll speak louder. No. Al Wunsch.
Yes. I hear you loud and clear.
Traffic court. You've been there a couple times.
I've been there many times. In fact, in New Jersey, it requires 3 people in the HOV lane. I was stopped. I told the cop I was a spiritualist. I then got a ticket for having too many people in the car. But with regards to this defense, it's ingenious. It's an absolute ingenious defense. She absolutely deserves to win because of this original defense. There's no way any judge can convict her based on that. I don't care if they recognize this, recognize that. Based on a Supreme Court holding that threw out Roe versus Wade, she's got as good a shot of anybody in Texas. You know, God only knows what they do there. But as far as I'm concerned, exceptionally good, great thinking. She should be a lawyer.
Jennifer Brandt, let me ask you your thoughts about this defense.
I think it's an excellent defense as well. I actually agree with Al on this one. And I think she was really creative and quick thinking. And I think she's right, especially in Texas. So I think that given what happened with Roe v. Wade, why not make that argument? Everyone else is. So why not? I think she's got a shot. And for her creativity alone, I think her ticket should be thrown out.
We got another comment from Cindy who says no, because it was actually 2 people. That's still not high occupancy. That's interesting. I think that depends on the state that you're in. Darnell, Crosland, your thoughts? I mean, this is and she did it on the spot, by the way. She came up with that, not came up with, or gave that defense or explained the defense to the officer who didn't buy it, but will a judge?
Why do we always have to come up with, Vinny? You remember that, right?
Exactly.
So in this particular case, you know, I hate to take you to law school here, but we often look at the legislative intent, and obviously legislative intent of the HOV lane is to have more people in the car, less cars on the road, because we're sharing the cars. Also, the law school tells us...
Wait, Darnell, I see where you're going, but can I just jump in for a second?
She has another person, Darnell. She has someone else with her.
How is that baby different than my 5-year-old or my 12-year-old or my 16-year-old who doesn't have a license and couldn't drive themselves?
That's what I was going to get to. That's my second part. The law says that if a statute is ambiguous, the benefit always confers on the defendant, if you would. So because there's so many arguments here, one could argue that it's ambiguous, and therefore she should get off. And that's what I was getting at. So she could send me the check in the mail.
There you go, Erica. Podcast. Erica tonight, absolutely. Remember, unborn babies count as a human life. We should also be able to claim them on our taxes from the time of conception as well. I mean, why not? If you count it for one thing, you need to count it for everything. Al, what do you think for the taxes?
Wow. Let me tell you something. Another ingenious thought. But, of course, I'm not going to advocate that because I don't need the IRS coming after me, okay? I'll deal with the fact that Texas only requires 2 people in a car. That's HOV in Texas, which doesn't make any sense to me. But nonetheless, it's 2 for Texas. She goes free.
All right. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt. Excellent as always. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, your expertise.